My wife wanted a new napkin holder for her new counter there, so it's kind of a build of what I came up with. As with all my projects, I start with lumber that I had sawn in my backyard. The trees grew in the yard, and I saw them. Then I air dry them, and here it is, all ready to go. First thing you have to do is, as with every project, just start by flattening one side of the board on the joiner, and then it goes through the planer just to give you a perfectly parallel board there, and then you go back to the joiner and you get a good 90-degree edge that's perpendicular to those faces on it. The next step, and then over to the table saw and just rip it to width. Yeah, this is kind of standard procedure for any rough cut lumber that you use. And I'm real happy with that new Amana blade. You can see how nice that rips and how quick and easy it is. And then this project sort of incorporated that new miter set gauge, which makes it real easy, and just set up my miter gauge here for the segments I was going to use. And I did remove this washer from the miter gauge, and it made everything really nice and square and flat when you twist it now. So that problem was solved simply. So then I just decided to make this kind of a segmented piece, since I had just gotten a new miter gauge and that segment gauge, just to see how everything works out. So I cut the blocks to start the project. And the only way I know to kind of hold these together while you're trying to get ready to glue up is masking tape. Wish there was a little bit easier way, but I wind up just putting some masking tape on each of the joints to make a hinge, so later I can unfold it for the glue. This does take a little while, but as you can see, that miter set and that gauge really did do a nice job, and even that new Amana blade did a good job at coming up with a really nice fitting segment there. So I got that set up, and then there it is. Just peel back one side and unroll it, and now this is really the first time I've glued up a segment, and I didn't realize that you don't need much glue when you do these. I sort of slopped the glue on a little bit heavier than I should have, which makes it harder to squeeze everything out later to get a tight fit, but you learn as you go along. So got the glue on it, and then just kind of got the strap clamp out, tried to get that to pull together, and there you can see how much glue is squeezing out. It really was kind of a mess, and it made it so that the miter clamp itself couldn't pull everything tight together. And also that glue, when you've got that much on, it kind of gets slippery and things move around a little bit as you tighten them. So I'm just going to have to figure out how to spread a little bit thinner on the next set that I do. So there you can see I wound up throwing on extra clamps and stuff to try to pull it together, and a wet rag to try and clean up some of that extra glue, and even a couple more clamps to try to pull everything flush. And there it is, about an hour later. You can see it's it came out pretty good. I did have one block that slipped when I tightened the clamps here. You can see just a hair, so I'm going to have to deal with that, but otherwise it came out real nice. So I was able to just trim that quickly with the saw, and that got the that got everything down, so it's pretty much perfect. Then there was a little bit of misalignment in the block from the glue slipping around, so I just took a sheet of sandpaper and threw it on my table saw top and went over it a little bit until it took the high spots off, and pretty much everything came out perfect then. And it's time to get the fan out and do a little bit more sanding on it. Get everything sanded down pretty good. And that center hole, I decided to, instead of trying to clean all the glue out of it and everything else, because it was kind of a mess from all the squeeze out, I decided to just put a round hole in there perfectly centered to give it a nice clean look easily. So I just clamped that down to the table and drilled that out, and there you can see that was an easy way to clean up that centerpiece. Then I took the little palm router with a 1/8 of an inch round over bit and pretty much went around all the top and bottom surfaces there to break the edges so there weren't any sharp corners left on it. It's amazing how quick and easy stuff like this is to put together with that, that new miter gauge and the that setup block also. So I got that all rounded over all the edges, and then just the final finish sanding to do a little bit of a cleanup. And then I decided I was going to try. I had some of the salad bowl finish I was going to use on it, and I had this laying around for a long time, never used it, started putting it on, and I realized that I didn't like the smell of it at all, and I didn't like the shiny finish it put on there, so that I wound up sanding off later, but it was just to protect stuff during the glue up anyway. So then I started to make the little overhead part, and I drew kind of a template on plywood there, and back to the table saw to cut the blocks to put that all together. And I am getting really nice accurate cuts now. And then it's time to put the dado head on and cut some dados. Gonna mortise and tenon these two pieces together, so these little side blocks do get a tenon cut on them, and that Infinity dado head that I got a while back really does a good job at cutting clean dados and stuff like that. So that just took a couple minutes to set everything up and run it, and I do have to build some zero clearance inserts for this dado set someday too. Someday I'll probably do another video about building a bunch of them. I did do some overlays for the saw, but I never did anything for the dado blade. So I got them all cut and ready to go, and making that little template on plywood there helped to glue everything together also. So I started same thing, tape everything up just to kind of give you a hinge point and a starting point for the glue up. And actually the tape does work pretty good for when you fold stuff together. It doesn't stretch or anything. So, and then this time I actually did put a lot less glue on the joints, and it made it a lot easier to glue up, less slipping, and everything was easy to clamp and stuff. So I just clamped it to my template to make sure everything was perfect there, and then it was time to start drilling the mortises there. And you can see I just set up the chisel in my drill press and didn't set up the fence and stuff. I just used a piece of wood and one of those Kreg Automax clamps to hold that down while I was drilling them. And it's pretty easy to drill a square hole this way. You just, I started with a 1/4 inch square bit, and I took the first cut, and then I just, once that was done, I just slipped it down and just did the same thing over and over again until I had the everything cut out exactly to the lines that I had marked on that masking tape. So there it is. Everything's all cut and ready to go together, and you can see it's a pretty much a perfect fit. I have to say, starting to get some of the right tools in my shop really makes a big difference in how easy it is and successful little projects like this come out. So then I went over to the router table and I put a little 1/8 inch radius bit on there, and this one's got a brass pilot so I can get pretty sharp corners on the inside there. You can see it doesn't have a big radius on there, so I just went back over this overhead support there and put little radiuses on everything on that. And then I wanted to put some splines in to add extra strength to it. So, that table saw jig's a real handy thing to have. It makes it easy to set up things like this. And then a little piece of plywood there, clamped everything down nice and tight so it wouldn't move during the cut. And I just put a 1/4 inch dado set in the saw, and was able to cut those grooves very quickly for the splines. I figured the walnut splines would give it a nice little accent color there, and also add quite a bit of strength to these joints. So there's the first one cut, and then same thing, once you're set up, it's real easy. And then I just went over to the bandsaw and I cut a strip of walnut to be the 1/4 inch wide to fit the slots exactly there, and went over to the bandsaw and just roughed out some oversized splines to glue into them. And I will say this bandsaw has been running really good since I got that bottom wheel updated. Everything's nice and square and smooth right now, so I'm happy with it at this point. Then time to glue in the splines, and as always, I put extra glue in there. I gotta get a glue bottle with a little bit skinnier tip on it, I think, to help me control the amount that I get on there, because I always waste a lot. I'd say 50% of the glue that I buy is wasted. So those little silicone brushes really help to spread it out too, and just kind of had to push it down in there, and all that extra glue gets behind there. So it actually took a clamp to squeeze all that out, so you'd have a nice sharp contrast where the ash met the walnut. So I just kind of squeezed it down, and then went back and put a couple spring clamps on it, and the same thing for the other side. Now this will really strengthen them up pretty good, and you can kind of get an idea of what it's looking like. Then I needed a weight to keep the napkins from flying around in the wind, which was one of my wife's requests. So I had another little strip of walnut scrap that I just set up on the saw, and had to cut out some grooves so it would go up and down and guide on those uprights. There's another easy job, and I really like the big aluminum fence on that Kreg miter jig set up there, because it really gives you something nice to clamp to and a good starting point for just setting up for things like this. And there you can see that really has been handy. So that goes in between the two pieces, and this is my first attempt at it, and you can see I made it a little bit too tight, so I had to go back and actually cut the grooves just a little bit deeper to get everything to slide and fit perfect. But figured better off to cut a little bit shallow on the first cuts, and then go back and just fine tune it. Then I was back over to the router table to add the little radiuses to all the corners of this block also, so be no sharp edges on it to grab the napkins or anything like that. And a couple final corner radiuses there. I just did freehand on that little Harbor Freight sander, and that's really been a handy little thing in the shop for stuff like this. I get a lot of use out of that for my $39 I paid for it. And then back to the drill press, I had to drill a hole for the brass rod that was going to be going up out of this piece, so I wanted to make sure that was actually nice and square to it. So I drilled kind of like a press fit hole in there, and then on the top of that assembly there, I had to drill a 3/8 hole for a brass bushing that I was putting in up there to make everything guide smoothly. So I just set up, and you can see there's a backing block clamped on there with those two little clamps to keep it from getting breakout when it goes through the other side. And then just I had to do some sanding, and that walnut sands down real easy with a block, nice flat block and stuff. And then I needed some threads in the top here to get my fitting started in, so I just took an old lamp part, one of those lamp 1/4-inch connectors, and ground a little notch in the end of it and used that as a die in the drill press to get everything going straight. And then I was able to once I got that started, I was able to actually screw that little brass fitting in that you see there to use for my guide. So there it is. That's what it's gonna work like in the end. My wife wanted to weight to hold stuff down, and she wanted a horizontal napkin pile, so this is what she's getting. And then for the handle, I decided I'm going to use a rock, and I didn't really like this one, so I had to go up to Soda's Point Beach and pick up a perfect one for it. Then I decided to put some Danish oil on, and I've had this can around for years. I've been using it. It's getting pretty thick now, so it goes on almost like a varnish. It does a really good job, goes on, and actually it dries really quick, and very little odor and stuff, so I figured I'd use this, and I'm real happy with the natural finish, matte finish it gives the wood. So I did all the parts there, and you can see that base I had sanded off that other finish there, and I'm putting this on now. And I just avoided putting any finish on those the tenon areas or mortise areas. And here's the stone I felt was the perfect stone that I found up at the beach, and I had to drill a hole in there. Now this is my first time drilling a stone, so I started out with a one of those carbide bits from one of those cheap carbide bits for concrete, and I just couldn't get it started right. The stone was round and misshapen, and every time you touched it with the bit, everything would just kind of walk and move around. So finally I took the stone over to my grinder, and I was able to grind just a little tiny flat spot on it where I wanted the bit to start. And once I did that, no more walking. Broke the surface there, and once it got through the surface, it basically drilled it like a piece of wood almost. I did fill up an old glue bottle with water just to, flush it out and keep it cool so it wouldn't expand and crack the stone and stuff. And put an old cookie sheet under the vise just to catch everything so I didn't make a mess. And I was really surprised how nice this little piece of stone actually drilled. Now that I know how easy this stuff drills, I've really got some other ideas to use some of these natural rocks from the beach for. So that turned out to be a pretty quick and easy job, and you can see there that the hole actually came out really nice and clean and perfect, so I'm happy with that. And there's the tubing that I had that's going to go in it, and turned out to be just about a perfect fit. So, everything worked out good. It didn't drill oversized or anything. Then before starting assembly, I decided to go back and put some coats of paste wax on everything to make sure it would slide up and down and stuff, because you really couldn't get into it once it's assembled. It's kind of permanently put together. So I put a good coat of wax on everything. And this stuff really does help protect it and bring out the finish on it and stuff. And then I polished up that little brass fitting on the buffer and, screwed that back up in the top there. And you notice I didn't get any finisher wax on any of those mortise or tenon areas. You got to be careful because it's going to be glued at this point. So that threaded in there nice, and I'm trying to put it together, and I decided to use some clear epoxy. Get this stuff at my dollar store. So this stuff's 60-minute set, and it'll take a while to set, but it doesn't matter. And then for mixing the epoxy and stuff, I like to take credit cards and just old credit cards and just slice them up to like 1/4-inch slices, and they make real good little disposable mixers and good things for putting epoxy in holes like this and stuff like that. So it's just try to be careful and not get too much on it, but I always keep a piece of paper towel, a little bit of alcohol on it, just in case I do make a mess. That'll usually clean it right off. I try to get a good coating all around the inside of them, and time to do the final assembly here. And you can see that brass tube's already been put in that horizontal weight piece that drops. I put that in, and I staked it on the other side with a little prick punch so it won't pull out. And then I was able to just, slide them through the mortises there, and everything fit really perfect. And a little bit of glue out on the bottom, deal with later. And now I decided to just trim that brass tubing that I had, and that was just a simple matter of using the Dremel with a cutoff wheel on it. So I left it till this point in time just so I could get everything, exactly where I wanted it. So I got that all drilled and, fits nice. And so then it was just a matter of putting a little bit of epoxy in that hole. So there you see I took one of those little piece of credit card. I even cut it down smaller to use to get the epoxy in the hole. So they are pretty handy for stuff like this, and you just toss them out when you're done. At the same time, you always kind of keep a rag with some alcohol on it just to clean up if you make a mess. Like you can see, I got a little bit spilled over there. And I did put a lot of epoxy in there, but I figured it was a hollow tubing, so it would probably help by going down in the tubing to help hold everything together. So just slid that on, and you can see I put some masking tape to hold that in place till the epoxy dried, and set it upside down for about 2 hours. And then I went back and took the flush cut saw and cut off anything that protruded out the bottom. And you can see that saw had no set in the teeth, so you can cut nice and flush without damaging the surrounding areas. And then just a little final cleanup with the sandpaper and just a little more wax to go back and protect it. I didn't feel like messing with any more finish. And this actually turned into one of those little projects that I worked on every time it got too hot out in the garden. So, it was over a period of time. But my shop's nice and cool down in the basement. So, that made it nice. So there it is, all done. Took tape off, and time for a couple little stick-on feet on the bottom to try to help hold it in place on the countertop. And that's what it looks like, and that's how it works. And it's amazing what you can do with a couple pieces of scrap wood and a old stone if you put a little bit of time into it. So there it is. Napkins will sit horizontally like my wife wanted, and also will be weighted so that the wind can't blow them away. And time to go up in the kitchen and replace the old plastic one that she wasn't happy with anymore. So, a stack of napkins just slides right onto there. I was going to put a stop, but I decided I didn't need it. And so there they are. They fit nicely. And if you want one, you pull it out quick, the rest stay. So, it makes it real easy to access them. So I just thought I'd share this. It's just a quick little project idea. And we're real happy with the way it came out. And, it's all wood from the backyard and stone from the beach. And just an old piece of brass. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe.